Hi, and welcome to this special edition of The Right Stuff. I'm the Queen, Parker J. Thanks for joining me. I've been telling you all about this wonderful anthology that I'm a part of called A Time for Everything. It's a speculative fiction anthology inspired by Ecclesiastes 3, and you may be very familiar with this poem, A Time for Everything. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to gather stones, and a time to gather stones and throw stones out, something like that. I'm missing it up there. But there's a time for everything. And we were all the authors of this anthology were inspired by this wonderful poem that has been known throughout the ages. And today I'm talking with one of my fellow compadres. His name is Adam David Collings, all the way from Australia. And he's going to be sharing with us about his story, A Time to Mourn. Adam, how you doing?
Oh, I'm wonderful, thank you.
And I am so glad you took time out to be here with me. As I told some of the other authors, we were so excited to be a part of this wonderful
Mm.
project. When we all received the invitation, I think most of us was like, why didn't we think of this before? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, duh, right? But when you were given your verse, did you pick your verse? Did Ben give it to you? How did it all come about?
No, so there was basically the list of I actually knew about this quite early, and I took a long time to choose a verse. So by the time I kind of did, there weren't a lot left, and I think that was actually helpful because it was kind of daunting seeing 28 different options, and I've got to come up with a story for one of these. Whereas when there are only a few left, I still hadn't actually picked one. I was looking at them and thought, okay, which of these can I come up with something? And I was drawn to a time to mourn, and I had an idea of something I could do with that. Um, I knew that I wanted to use a particular character I'd done before because one of the other interesting things about this anthology is that all the stories they kind of involve time travel or some kind of time manipulation. And I had a character that I'd written a story for the crossover Alliance anthology for their superhero collection. And so this was basically a child who had this ability to pause and rewind time. So he could essentially have infinite redos. Whenever he'd make a mistake, he could go back and try again. And that story was kind of about how it was told from the father's point of view, with this challenge of trying to raise a child with superpowers. And that was very much reflective of my own kind of experience of what I was working through, figuring out how to raise a child with special needs. So I knew this character would fit perfectly into this anthology. And when I saw A Time to Mourn, I thought, for someone who has that ability that they can do infinite redos, what if there was something they couldn't do? What if there was someone that mattered to them that they couldn't save? And then they'd have no choice but to mourn that person like the rest of us. So that's where that kind of seed of the idea came from.
And I think it's an interesting idea because there isn't anyone living who wouldn't want the ability to go back in
Mm,
time and redo some part of their life, even if it
yeah.
is, let's say, I fall and broke my leg. I could just go back time, step over that that banana peel or something like that, you know.
Mm,
But I have recently really embraced the idea that we are who we are because of the experiences that we deal with. Not all of that, of course. We do have our own personalities and our own inbred talents, but our experiences make us who we are, whether they're
mm,
good decisions or bad decisions. And I would say that if we didn't make mistakes, we would never learn. Or if we didn't fail, we wouldn't know how to succeed. And I've come to embrace that more and more the longer I do this thing called life. And so our main hero here, he has to learn that the hard way. And it's difficult for him
mm,
because for a while there in the beginning of the story, he's not even remotely worried that there's something he can't take care of because, like he said, I could just go back in time and fix it up. But there are some limits right now to his ability because one thing he knows is that I will get better at this thing. And what is one of those limits that he
mm,
discovers? And it's not about the other part. It's just when he was looking about things he could kind of fix in a newspaper, that part of the story.
Yeah, so obviously as a 14-year-old boy living in Tasmania, which is a state of Australia, it's actually an island right down the bottom. Um, he can't just go anywhere in the world and fix things. He can't fly to another country like Superman. Um, and he's looking at the newspaper, noticing like the war in Ukraine, and that's something that he can't fix. He can't physically get there, and even if he could, what's a 14-year-old boy going to do with these kind of global stakes? So that yeah, that's definitely a limitation that he's learning early on in that story.
But it's interesting because as a young boy, we get a chance to grow with him as he becomes this metahuman, as the
Mm.
term is now,
Yeah.
or we would call them superheroes in our everyday
Mm.
colloquial English here. The only thing about it, and I love this fresh take on the superhero genre, only because we here in the US of A have been tired out by superhero movies. They're calling it superhero fatigue now.
Hmm.
And every movie seems to be this
Yeah.
bigger than life CGI, literally the same regurgitated story with different superheroes. And you kind of sit there go,
Mm.
I know how this movie is going to end. And you wonder, were the people who were making the movie aware that they just took the same script from last year and smacked new names on there? You know. And so, what
Yeah.
is your opinion about the superhero fatigue that people are experiencing?
Yeah, I think it is happening. I think on the Marvel side, they created this amazing thing which culminated with Endgame. And I think it's really hard for them to recapture that afterwards. And I'm still not convinced that maybe they should. Maybe Endgame would have just been a great ending to stop at. Um, I mean, I know I watched everything up to that point, and there's still a number of those Marvel movies since then that I actually haven't gotten around to watching yet. Um, so yeah, I think people probably are starting to get a little bit tired, and particularly when you say that they have to have that big, like even with the show WandaVision, that was such a unique and different kind of thing, but they still kind of ended up ending it like a traditional Marvel movie with a big fight at the end. Um,
And then
in
some
terms of those
people,
big stakes, I think,
I was going
yeah,
to say,
sorry.
some people were upset with WandaVision because she did torture a town, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because she's dealing with grief. And if you're going to
Mm.
have that be her epitaph, then I honestly think what would have been better is not even heal the town. That's just me though.
Mm.
For what I understand, 'cause I'm not a superhero lover or anything like that. So from osmosis, that seems to be what
Yeah.
people consider, but that's just my opinion. But what were you gonna say, Adam?
Mm. Oh, yeah, I was just going to say that I thought Spider-Man Homecoming, being that it was about this teenage boy who wasn't up there, he wasn't Avenger level kind of yet, and part of his story was learning that. Just the fact that that movie had much lower stakes, um, that felt really fresh, and the lower stakes still felt compelling because he was less. He was not experienced. He was not as old and wise. And so I thought that combination of that younger character and lower stakes was a really good fit for that character and that movie.
Yeah, but why do you think generally why people, generally speaking, even though we have fatigue, why are people drawn to superheroes? And even for yourself, why were you drawn to create this character?
Mm. I think for most of it, there's an element of power fantasy. We like to imagine that we can do things that humanly we know we can't. And I think looking back through history, even like you're looking at the ancient Greeks and their gods were were kind of the precursors to superheroes in a way. Like when you look at them, they were nothing like the God of the Bible. They were so flawed. They were essentially people with special powers.
Yeah.
And so I think it. it's that same kind of power fantasy that humanity has had for millennia, that we just enjoy thinking about going beyond the frail bodies that we have now. And maybe a part of that is even a yearning for heaven and for the new earth, that we have to look forward to as Christians, on some kind of a subconscious level for everyone. There's this, God has put this yearning inside us that what we are now is not all that we can be, and this world is not all that it will be.
It kind of goes to the whole thing about your story, A Time to Mourn. Like right
Mm,
now, we're in mourning, and maybe subconsciously we mourn what we could have been, right?
mm,
In a perfected body, perfected Eden. But there will be a time for dancing, and there will be a
mm,
time for joy, and there will be a time for laughter in
yeah.
the next life to come. And that's something that's really exciting to look forward to. Now, what was really surprising about this story, I know you haven't had a chance to read some of the other stories in the anthology because you have been very busy, sir. But I do know that everyone really put their own spin on their stories. They really did.
Mm,
But when you see that, you're kind of going like, I would have never thought of going about it this way. I would have never thought about this way. 'Cause I think you read your opposite verse, which is A Time to Dance, I think it is. Yeah,
yes.
I think you read that one. And you say you were surprised to see just how well they mesh because
Mm,
they were incidentally, we don't go into the story because we'll talk to that author at a later date, but they were connected in a sense by mourning. And what is it
yeah.
about mourning that actually brings people together? Because that's something that happens in your story when we mourn.
Mm, yeah. I guess it's that shared pain. You know, pain is a little easier when it is shared, and when we have someone, well, people to come around us to support us and comfort us, but also people who are going through it at the same time so they understand, and they can kind of share that same kind of feeling. Uh, I've been quite lucky, I guess, in my life where I haven't had any great moments of mourning. I have lost grandparents, which is something that we all know is coming, but I haven't lost a spouse or a parent or a sibling or a child, any of those kind of things. Um, and yeah, it's those ones that we don't expect, that we don't know are coming, I guess, that can really knock us about pretty hard.
It's like a looming creature that just looms over
Mm,
us, the specter of
yeah.
death. And I was
Mm,
telling one of our compadres, Kathy McCrum, and her story, dear listener, is A Time to Love. I was telling her on her show that we did, there are things that you learn through death that you won't learn through life.
mm,
And many of my listeners know when my grandmother passed away, she was a very important part of my life. And when she passed away, I had never had my reality shaken so hard.
mm,
Someone asked me, they said, "Why are you so close to your grandmother?" And it was difficult to put into words, but I finally said, there was no moment that she was not there.
yeah.
How have you? I had a whole life of my grandmother with me, and suddenly she wasn't there. How
Hmm.
do you pick up the pieces? How do you look at this smoking crater in your life and say, how do I go on from it? But what I do remember is the things she taught me, is the things that she instilled into me. And those are the things I hold on to. And that's something you touch on in
Mm,
A Time to Mourn. And dear listener, if we have intrigued you with this story, go ahead and pick up your copy of A Time for Everything, a speculative fiction anthology inspired by Ecclesiastes 3. And it was edited by our good friend Ben Avery. Now, Ben Avery is the one who got us all together. And like I told Ben and Adam, I know you agree, working with another author is difficult. So working with 28 more must
yeah.
running ragged. And somehow he got us all working together. So for
Yeah.
those of you who want to know, I think you've been on Ben's other show, Strangers and Aliens. I think you've been on his show for that one
Yes.
as yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Talked to him about Star Trek Picard season 3 a couple of months ago.
And see, I haven't watched Picard
Mm.
because I am not going to have canon destroyed for me. And I have very traditionalist and purist views about Star
Hmm.
Trek, which is one of
Yeah.
the reasons why I have not watched Discovery. I am
Yep.
nervous to watch
Mm.
SNW. I mean
Yeah.
SWNW. I'm nervous to watch that. I'm very nervous, but I have been told they keep to the attitude and the feel of the original Star Trek.
Mm.
I did like the one they did on YouTube, Star Trek Continues. I did like
Yeah.
those episodes, which were really, really good.
Mm.
The actors did a great job portraying the characters I grew up with. So for me, it is not just a fandom. It is
Mm.
I hate to say it, it's like a belief system here. Okay. So,
Mm.
and I have to be ever so careful. So that's why I'm not going to have my Star Trek destroyed. I'm not going to have it
Yep.
destroyed. So that's why I haven't watched it. And then like I had someone spend an hour on the phone with me, Adam,
Hmm.
and they
Yeah.
told me every episode of Picard one and I'm sorry, not Picard, Discovery. They
Yeah.
told me they said don't watch the third season, don't watch it. They said it's awful.
Mm.
So they said you could just skip it.
Mm.
That was Discovery. But when they changed canon and destroy the Klingons. I don't know what
Mm.
these things were. They weren't Klingons, okay? So
Yeah.
I don't know what they were, but they weren't
Yeah.
Klingons. So, and the people who
Yes.
were involved in it, they don't have any type of knowledge about the show, all that. So that's why I'm not going to do it to myself. I'm not.
Yep.
Okay, it's like I'd rather just watch all the old stuff and get my fix there because you're
Yeah.
not going to destroy it for me. But maybe I'll watch Strange New Worlds. Maybe I will. Sorry, dear listener, you know that's my fandom and that's my obsession is Star Trek. So I'm
Mhm.
gonna hone it back in, Adam, and let people know how can they connect with you online.
You can find me at adamdavidcollings.com. That's Collings with a G, not Collins, which is a common mistake because the Collings is less common. Um, .com. I don't know if I said that. But yeah, that's my website where you can find everything that I do there. Uh, yes, and on any social media, you'll basically find me at Adam David Collings or Adam Collings.
So, Adam, I want to thank you so much for being with me on the show today. Like I said, we just wanted to touch base on your story. Now, if other readers wanted to get some of your other books, where do you want them to start?
So my main series is called Jewel of the Stars. It's a space opera about a cruise ship in space on the run after Earth falls to an alien occupation. So Jewel of the Stars, season one, book one, is a good place to start. It's only 99 cents, and it's a 30,000 word novella. So it's a fairly low investment of time and money to see whether you enjoy it or not.
All right, gang. Adam, thank you so much for being here. And dear listener, thank you for joining me for this special edition of A Time for Everything. Make sure you go ahead and get your copy today. It's available on Amazon.com. And what's really cool is that it comes in both ebook, paperback, and hardcover. So you definitely want to get it. It is a massive tome, over 500 pages, but every story is excellent. Go ahead, get it today. You're not going to be disappointed. Adam, once again, thank you for joining me and we'll see you again next time.